Etapu family, assalamu alaikum, and all power to the people. Let's free all political prisoners. And welcome to this special edition of Future Shock as we look at the high price of oil and energy in the world today. Of course, this is Brother Jamal. We'll be joined by Brother Wisdom 2C in just a few minutes, but we just have a number of things that we want to get across to you today so that you can understand the magnitude of this program. For those of you in the listening audience that want to email us a question, of course, you can do so by emailing a question to innerlightradio@yahoo.com. We're on live right now. It is May the 25th in their year 2006, in the year of our Kemetic ancestors, 6246. And it is approximately 3:44 in the p.m. on the Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be talking about a whole host of issues today as it pertains to the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, who said that they found no evidence that oil companies illegally manipulated gas prices. Okay. Then we found another story where they say the gas prices have prompted a shift in car buying. We'll talk about that. There is some price gouging that has gone on after Katrina, and I guess, again, this comes from the Federal Trade Commission. They said this on Monday. And we'll talk about a whole host of issues, and as always, wherever you are in the world, we want you to email us and let us know what the price of gasoline is going for, whether it's per gallon or per liter, depending on the part of the world that you're in. Let us know what kind of changes, lifestyle changes that you have to make because of the high price of fuel right now. Let's bring him into the conversation, none other than Brother Wisdom 2C. Brother Wisdom, we want to welcome you to this edition of Future Shock. How you doing, brother?
Yes, beloved, it is a great honor and a pleasure. We would like to extend the greetings of peace of Hotep and Assalamu alaikum to all of the African peoples, wherever we find them, all over the world, and to all of our extended family as well. It is such a great honor and pleasure to be here tonight, this afternoon, to be able to talk about some of the critical issues that you're not going to hear on ABC or CBS, nor NBC, nor Fox News, but only here at Innerlight Radio and www.talkblackliveradio.com and other internet radio station feeds that has your voice in mind.
Well, Brother Wisdom, you know, right off the top, there's so much that's going on right now. It seems like the price of a barrel of crude oil is fluctuating somewhat, but it's still hovering above $70 a barrel. I've seen a little bit of relief at the pumps this week, just a little bit, maybe like a 4-cent drop in certain areas, maybe a 5-cent drop in another area, not a significant drop in the price. Here in the state of California, a gallon of regular unleaded is still going for about $3.35, maybe $3.29 is the cheapest that I've seen recently. That's per gallon. This fluctuation in the price of a barrel of crude oil, does that change your mind about anything that we've talked about in the past in terms of the price that may reach even $100 a barrel this year?
Well, I think that it's really based upon how conscious are we about the reality of the state of the world on a global market and how things are unfolding as we speak. It is unbelievable that when you ask that question, we have to look at something that could it be that it is due to the fact that it might seem or appear to the American public or the consumer market that it may appear that things are okay, status quo is going to remain the same. Well, what's happening is that you have these market manipulation processes that are taking place in regards to these oil barons, and when you think about it, they spend millions and millions of dollars, and that's not just only talking about the oil industry. We're talking about also the utility companies as well. Spend millions of dollars to manipulate the process in regards to the news media to keep us to think that that you can be able to say that the electric company will be reliable, or to convince you, the American public, that oil consolidation is good for America, when we now are after 30 and 40 years of the United States public giving away its tax dollars to subsidize years of programs that these all industry, all barons are supposed to have accomplished in behalf of the American public. And we find now that the reports come back that there has not been not one new oil refinery been built since past 20, 30 years. There has not been, as a matter of fact, in some areas, there have been oil refineries shut down. And then on top of that, you have to look at there has not been that one electrical power plant built in the past 20, 30 years. And so now we are looking at a situation that is just only paramount, that we're going to have to begin to look at the world scene too, how geopolitically, when we talk about economics, we have to look at the geopolitical situation. And really, I'd like to ask this one question. When Vice President Cheney happened to open up his mouth and made a comment about Russia, I want to know, has the issue, can you make it clear to me, to us as black people, because as you know, we here have matured to the point that we can be able to give our own critical analysis of the world scene and on the issues of globalization and oil prices. But the question is, when Vice President Cheney opened up his mouth and made this comment, all of a sudden President Putnick made a comment, and it went like this. He said, "Okay, now that you have made this comment, we have now entered into a Cold War." Now, I want to ask those of you who are listening into this broadcast, what does that mean? Have you heard anything else? And is it a process that they're trying to keep that information out? We know that Russia and China is already doing military exercises, and they've been, you hear little glimpses of the information out there. We're hearing that, what does this mean when you tie this into already that Iran is now dumped the dollar for the euro? And then when we stop and we look at, we just heard just recently, some new countries that joined in down in South America. What is these 5,000 or 6,000 troops doing right now, talking about the illegal aliens, but yet at the same time, does this have a major effect on the United States economy in regards to a continuous process, or if this is an ongoing process, or will more and more nations begin to want to make a decision to actually drop the dollar, to go over to the euro? Now, this will have a major impact on us, and not only just that, when the situation occurred, I'm hearing some things up in the air now that the Russia and China said, look, do not go in there, do not go to, they're insisting that they want them to take another process, create another road path or path to dealing with this issue with Iran in regards to the nuclear power plant. Now, the issue here is that if America decides to make this decision, and there has been some thoughts out there and there have been comments made out there that the United States may decide to go it alone. And if this becomes the case, I want to say that right now we have to really tie this into some very serious issues here. The impact is already being felt. I'm saying to you that the oil prices are going to go up to over $100 a barrel. I have last year, as you know, we have been making predictions here for over the past 3-4 years, and each prediction has come true. If you remember back then when gas prices was, I think the highest it went was $70 a barrel. The year before that, you remember when gasoline hit $50 a barrel. And so, what I'm saying is that, in essence, is that when you look at the utility crisis right now, I'm talking about the oil crisis, you're looking at issues of what is the impact really mean to black folks. And what I want to do is, we have made some attempts to do some research as we speak, and we talked about the black farmers. I really feel at this moment that at this point, every organization, if you are a black political, social, or economic organization, need to immediately contact as many black farmers as we can to find out what we can do to, one, stop the land grab, two, find out what we can do to help alleviate some of the problems that these black farmers are being affected on. In addition to the Department of Agriculture, and there's been there have been some accusations that the Department of Agriculture have provided racist positions against the black farmers. There was a thing about a lawsuit or a class action suit against the Department of I'm talking about the Department of Agriculture. But now, what does this mean? the issue here is that we're going to have to think about this, and this is that the last show that we had, Brother Jamal, I think, I don't know, do you still have that article on there? We had another show, and that show was talking about the trucking industry. Just recently announced it, that they having some major concerns.
Yes, and actually I have a copy of that here in the studio. I can find it in just a few minutes. We may need to recite some of that for this particular broadcast. You know, Brother Wisdom, it's also very interesting that federal government says that the gas is going to stay above $2.60 a gallon all summer long. Now, I guess that's suggesting that there are certain areas in this country where gas is not already $3 a gallon. I'm going to suspect that there are very few.
Here right now in our area, gasoline is around $2.80 something. I think the highest that we might see it, it's dropped down here now. Right now, we can get it at $2.60, $2.70, something like that.
Now you're in.
We're in the Midwest.
Okay, you're in the Midwest. I'm on the West Coast, where it is still.
But we do have this, what you call, they have an incentive program from the state, on a state level, that they pay, they give tax subsidies to those oil refineries, the companies, gasoline companies that use 10% ethanol.
Okay. Well, gas here in the state of California is still, for all three grades, is still averaging well over $3.40 a gallon here in the state of California. So the federal government is saying that the falling prices are not going to last, and they're already suggesting that a hurricane or some other natural disaster that could cause, I guess, a disruption in oil production in the Gulf of Mexico or ship refineries that are onshore, they're saying already that the fuel prices are going to soar. And that's from the Energy Information Administration. They said that last week, shortly before the Memorial Day weekend.
When you mentioned that, let me show you something right now. I want the black community to understand that this is we've been trying our best to warn black people to now. If you have not, and if you haven't, you will real soon begin to prioritize your driving habits very quickly. But also, we're going to have to be able to prioritize your purchasing and your investment habits. What I'm saying is that when you hit upon what you just mentioned, we got some situations here where when these gas prices go up to $4 or $5. I used to say, I had a saying that the foreclosures on the housing industry would be directly linked to that the utility bills would be anywhere from 2/3 to double that of a person's rent or mortgage. Now, that's one thing. But now we're hearing that people are foreclosing, not because of just only the utility bill, but they're saying that they're foreclosing because of just commuting back and forth to work, that they can't even commute. I'm talking about 100 miles a day or more just to get back and forth to work. So what does this mean? That means that at these prices right now, you're looking at devastation. I mean, right now, and we're going to tie this into why I mentioned about the black farmers, but we want to go back and tie this into poor communities, and particularly black communities, where they have supermarkets that are in their communities. And these communities, and I remember 3 years back, when you go back, I remember when there was a time when some of the supermarkets were talking about closing because they wasn't making a profit. And so what happens is that what could be the outcome, and this is why I'm talking about that what you hear here is information that you're not going to get on ABC or CBS, nor NBC, nor Fox News, but only here at Interlight Radio, www.interlight radio, and www.talkblackliveradio, and LIB, and other internet radio station feeds that has your voice in mind. So in totality, in the past 3 years alone, just on the natural gas end, I'm talking about your heating bills, I'm dealing with that, and just on your electrical end, we have already seen and witnessed anywhere from up to 150 to 250% jump in utilities. Listen, last year we had a 70% jump. This year, right now, in this state, we're talking about another 70% jump. The year before that, we just had anywhere from a 70 to 100. Some areas may have up to 150% jump. And even if it's just a small move of 30%, it is devastating to any person's average household. What it's really doing is that it's drying up the money supply and is wiping out the middle class, and I'm talking about the upper middle class down. There is no in between. And those who are in business right now need to need to sit down and listen to what we're talking about, why we're talking about why it's so important that you invest your money in getting solar systems on your home and look at renewable wind and all these different aspects. This is why the black farmers, we've got to make sure and see, are they moving toward the technological applications that technology and agriculture can provide as a solution to some of the problems that we're seeing. When I get back and I think about, when I look back, when they were talking about shutting down the supermarkets in the black communities, let me get this straight here. I want you to understand. I'm talking about that when they're talking about shutting down. I want you to hear this because you're not going to get this information nowhere else. No one's warning you right now, not even touching upon, nor have they came across their mind or thought about what we're talking about right now. This is just how powerful, how very powerful this is. That when you're talking about the food supply, we're talking about food prices going up so sky high that it's just going to be unbelievable. We're talking about when they start talking about shutting down supermarkets, and what the problem is that these big, gigantic, multi-conglomerate food chains or grocery corporations, whatever you want to call them, they have not prepared themselves by putting solar systems on their buildings to cut the cost on the utility end. So what's happening is that cost is articulating. That's not talking about the farmers, how they're paying more in gasoline and fuel just to cultivate the land. So all of this cost is going to rise into one form or another. But here's something that what I really want you to paint a picture of the future for you. I want you to think about this. I went to a grocery store, and when I went in, I went around and I started asking people about. I actually did some research and talked and asked questions about how do they feel that the food costs and food prices have been going up? Is it getting very high? And they said that to them, it seemed like every week, if it's not every other day, that the food prices are going up. And what you're looking at is that you're getting less and less in the bag. What you're noticing, and then, for example, even meat and sliced meat, you're getting maybe 6 or 7 slices, and they're giving you in forms of 8 ounces at a price that you used to pay for a pound. You're looking at bags of potato chips that have maybe a quarter of the bag and the rest of it is full of air. You're looking at your little sweets and your cupcakes that you like, that they are now being smaller and smaller, looking like one bite and it's it. You know, you can't guarantee a second bite because that's it. And then now, when you look at all all throughout the meats and all these other things, but then when we start looking at the fact that now, could it be that they might say, well, look, we can use a automated equipment, and now get this, automated equipment that you can come in, and they might create a new store, supermarket, where you come in and you don't see no human beings. You go in, you purchase your items, you put them on the counter. The counter, I mean, there's no person, no human contact whatsoever with the food, and everything is being registered through what you call radio tags on the food. So then that means that it weighs the food, it has a radio tag, it describes what the weight is and everything else, and they can tell if you try to switch on this bad boy that this computer is so sensitive that it can determine what it is that you've done, and then they may have 1 or 2 people behind somewhere else, behind the counter, or maybe somewhere in a cage somewhere, in a glass room or something, and they're just looking at you through a computer monitor. And when something comes up and someone tries to switch it, they can catch you. So here we're talking about automation that is getting to the point that you won't see any human beings coming in, or where you'll be interacting with. They'll have 3 or 4 aisles, and here it is. You're talking about jobs on top of that being lost because of the applications of the technology.
Well, Brother Wisdom, I have actually already seen those types of fully automated checkout stands. A couple of years ago, my wife and I and our family traveled from coast to coast. We drove, actually, probably the last time that'll ever happen. And in Kentucky, in Tennessee. We went to a couple of large holistic grocery stores, and they already had the fully automated checkout stands. No human contact whatsoever. You get your goods, it weighs your goods, it tells you the price to pay. You can pay with either cash, you can pay with your debit or credit card. You punch out, you bag it yourself, you put it in your shopping cart, and you get out.
And just think about it now. Think, you take in a $20 bill, and you bought $100 worth of groceries, and you feed that into the thing, into this look like a teller machine or something like that, ATM, but it's the opposite. It's not giving you money; they're taking your money. Okay, and so here you're looking at a whole new cultural aspect that is being transformed because of the applications of the technology. Now, but yet here it is. We have not heard. And matter of fact, we just recently was supposed to have had the program, what do we call the State of the Union address, and we have not heard anything addressing these issues about the energy crisis, the food crisis. Now, if those are the two elements and the main major conversations that Chairman Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is saying that is the core driver of the inflation is food costs and energy, energy costs. Those are the two major components that is driving the core inflation. Now, the issue here is that if they decide to dump the dollar, and if it goes any further, if the impact is being felt and is threatening the economy, they will go to war. There will be a situation, and this ties into some things that I had predicted about some years ago, talking about the trade war, because you're looking at China and you're looking at the economy, Chinese economy growing and expanding. You're looking at India, and its economy is expanding. So now you're looking at competing forces on the scene on the world market in regards to competing over this oil. So there's so many variables, and then so many unknown variables as well. But at this point, where is the strategy for black folks? And here I want you to understand that here we're going to provide some, on top of the critical analysis that we're presenting, that we challenge those who are listening to call in. Right now you could call in to Brother Jamal or email your questions, and I want critical analysis and questions in regards to addressing the issues that I'm presenting. I'm asking you, do you believe or do you not believe that they would shut down the supermarkets in your neighborhood in the black community? And the next question is, do we have a plan? And third, why we don't have a plan? And fourth, what is it the position of the black farmers, and what are they experiencing at this point?
Well, Brother Wisdom, you've raised an issue. A number of issues, and you're putting a bunch of things on the table for us. So for those in the listening audience, we want you to email your questions to innerlightradio@yahoo.com. And as I said earlier, I want to hear from everyone that's listening. Send us a quick email. Tell us what the price of a gallon or liter of gasoline costs in your part of the world. Now, we talked about the farmers. I want to go ahead and backtrack a little bit from our discussion last week, Brother Wisdom.
Yes, sir.
And so we can paint this picture as clearly as we can for the listeners. It's that last week we cited a story. It was dated May the 18th. And it was titled, "Farmers Feel Pinch of High Fuel Prices." And I'll read a couple of paragraphs here so we can get a feel for what's going on.
Please do.
The high price of fuel that powers irrigation equipment, tractors, and trucks hauling produce to market is taking a toll on California farmers. And some say it's a matter of time before the pain is passed on to the consumer at the grocery store. I believe that's already happening. I'll take a couple of months, quote, it'll take a couple of months to get through the system, but you'll feel it, end of quote, says Stephanie Williams, a spokesperson for the 24,000-member California Trucking Association. Quote, it's going to feel like you need to take out a small loan to buy groceries, end of quote. California, the nation's richest agricultural state, farmers use more than 1.5 million gallons of diesel fuel a day at the peak of harvest. The average retail price for a gallon of diesel was $3.26 on May the 10th, up from $2.44 around the same time last year, says the California Energy Commission. If prices still go up at your local supermarket, it's because of what happens in the fields and the shelves. Every day farmers load up their crops and transport them everywhere from the local farmers markets to overseas. Fuel is needed to truck and planes that carry thousands of California grown fruits and nuts and vegetables across state lines. Today, it costs a typical big rig with two 150-gallon tanks about $975 to fuel up, compared to about $730 a year ago. There you have it.
You know, what I'm so very seriously concerned about is the shock and trauma that is going to be revisited just as you look at the Katrina victims that are going to be going through some things now. Because if they didn't get their homes and their housing together, or they haven't been able to rebuild their lives after losing land, and we congratulate whoever became the mayor. I think that Mayor
Nagin was reelected.
Nagin has been able to win his seat again. We heard about the stories about corruption in regards to just the black congressman down in Louisiana with $90,000, almost $100,000 in his refrigerator. We can't not. You got to put human lives and businesses and families and babies upon these $500 billion worth of windfall profits that these criminal activities, what I call, when you look at the fact that when you look at if there's a violation of a monopoly, when the oil barons control most of the 60 or more % of the oil in this country, when you see a violation of the antitrust laws and the anti-security laws, when you see that when Kenny Lay and Scullings both now have been indicted, and they're going to be serving anywhere from 120 years or so in regards to what they have done. But what it was that they was considered one of the fourth largest companies in the world. Well, they were so large that they affected every person's pension, household, and every business, the stock markets, and including your it affected your when you talk about Enron and how they manipulated the people throughout California, and how just because of that they were able to, just in the state of California alone, you were able to rescind a sitting governor, and replace him with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, when you think about that, when you look at what Tom DeLay and then now Abenhoff have been able to lobby in behalf of these oil industries and in behalf of not only just the oil industries but these energy power plants. I'm talking about those because they have stock and control. The subsidiary companies that these oil companies, refinery companies own is your electric company. Now, the point is, your utility companies. Now, when you look at that and you turn around and you say, well, okay, here it is. They have not built any more new refineries. They have not built, and here they took, even on top of that, took American government subsidies. I mean, subsidized taxation. I'm telling you, they was given taxation, just like when we were talking about when we look at the gas prices right now, that the gas prices are being subsidized. So the actual cost that you should see at the pumps, you're not looking at. Let me give you an example. When you hear when the Congress and the Senate say, hey, look, the country is in pain economically, years back, President Bush said, well, wait a minute, we're not going to go into the Federal Reserve. Is that right? I'm talking about the oil reserve, petroleum reserve for the country. Now, what he did was that he later on, now this time around when gasoline hit $75 a barrel, the president decides to release the oil into the economy so that they could be able to have somewhat of a control mechanism or effect upon the oil prices that the consumer is purchasing. And it was only done because that at Bush right now at 37% or 34, 30% disapproval rate by the whole United States country. I'm talking about on both sides of the aisle, the Republicans and the Democrats. It was only behooving to him to do something in regards to cushion that pain. But when you look at what they call the strategic oil reserve, now when you think about that and think about how this is impacting how much, now this is just this one time, but now what's going to happen when the involatility of the Middle East began to take effect? What's going to happen when you begin to see that these gas prices begin to rise up higher than what you're feeling right now? Can you at $3.35 a gallon? How would you think you feel if the gas hit $4.35, which could be coming soon at your door? When you think about all these things, we've got to begin to create a strategy, and this is why I come right now upon the Joseph Vision. We provide vision. What we're talking about is looking at an economic solution to a problem. When we see social conditions change, we must learn to create new forms of economic positioning or economic leveraging. Now, we have talked about, well, if we're going to see a food shortage, then what could that mean? That means that do we have to immediately look at, from the political aspect, instead of these black politicians trying to play a game, the game that they can't play in regards to trying to put money in refrigerators, but maybe they can learn to start sitting down and creating new forms of proposition and writing up a proposition or HR bill that will tie us into international trade so that we can address some of the major problems that are affecting us right now as we live. Now, the thing is that when you look at the farmers, do we need to create a food co-op to be able to address the problems in case in front of a situation that may occur, meaning that if the supermarket is going to be shut down, and you just read an article about the farmers, the black farmers, then if we're talking about the black farmers, then we're talking about also the trucking industry. If we're going to look at the trucking industry, if we go back in history, back in the 1970s and back in the 80s, the trucking industry ended up going on strike. Why not? If they can't make any money, when you're looking at most of the truckers are independent truckers, that are tied in under a corporation a multi-agglomerate corporation control. Meaning that here they can't no longer move the products and goods and services to your home or to your neighborhood or across the country. Now you're looking at a situation that when that happens, then really the president is going to have to step in, because it's going to really be when you're looking at the term called inflation or inflationary effects. The movements of the interest rates going up and down and all that is to control mechanisms to be able to prevent it from being a deflationary effect. Meaning that a deflationary effect on the economy would mean that it would be a quick and immediate crash. And that's the part that everyone needs to be worried about. If the economy crashed. Now, when you look at the stock markets right now, the stock markets, when the oil prices go up, the stock markets go down. Now there's going to be a correction in the stock markets. And these corrections is going to be directly linked to how the behavior of the world in relationship to how they want to purchase that oil. If they decide to dump the U.S. dollar, will you please tell me what's going to happen to the stock markets?
www.innerlightradio.com. Click on contact us and email at innerlightradio@yahoo.com if you'd like to respond to anything that you've heard so far this evening in regards to the high price of fuel. The program is called Future Shock with Brother Jamal and Wisdom Tusi, and we want to hear from you, family. I know there's somebody out there that has to be feeling the pinch of the high price of fuel. Everybody that's online right now, well, maybe they don't go anywhere. That's why they're online. Maybe they've already made a jump from the real world to the cyber world, and they do all their business in cyberspace, and they're basically now a couch potato, and they don't drive. Maybe that's part of it. But in the event that that's not you, and you're still using fossil fuel, you're still getting around in your car, my goodness, God forbid you have a SUV. Brother Wisdom, we had our Talking Drum Community Forum meeting last week, as always, at the FIBA Center last week. Mm-hmm. And after our program that me and you did Thursday, a lady was listening, and she said, You know, I would buy that CD, but I can't take it anymore. I'm so depressed. I have an SUV, and I'm paying close to $80 every time I go to the pump. And she asked me with all honesty, did I think the price of gas was going to go higher than it is? And I said yes. And she looked at me with genuine horror, Brother Wisdom, genuine horror, and said, I don't want to hear any more of this. And she turned around and walked right out of the meeting. She didn't even stay.
Well, I've got some good news, and that is that when we began to, there are some things about the oil co-op that we were talking about some years ago. And I told them, no, that was not years ago. That was just a couple of months ago. We talked about that. I wanted to say that there are vehicles out there. There's one called the Insight, and it's a Honda. It is a hybrid vehicle that operates off electric and gas. It's getting somewhere around about, it averages 50, 60 miles to the gallon. And the gentleman that I talked to, he said that the vehicle actually, if the wind is blowing behind the back of it, you can push it along to 75 miles to the gallon.
Now, do they still make the Insight? I wasn't sure that they still made those. I thought they had replaced them with another version of a hybrid. Honda did.
I'm not that much on all of that information, just that I actually seen it and everything, and it was a nice little vehicle, but it's only a two-seater.
Yeah, it's a small one. And
that's right.
It looks
and
sort of like a little
small,
spaceship.
I think less than a liter engine or something like that. There's like it's a very small engine in there.
Yeah, I think it's only a 3-cylinder.
A 3-cylinder, that's correct. And then, but it's $20,000 for the vehicle. But he told me that was so interesting was that when he mentioned that he actually profits from it because of the mileage. He said you really benefit the most if you got a lot of miles that you have to take, a lot of mileage that you get. You really get your money back. It pays for itself in the long run based upon how much mileage are you going. The more you have to use it, if you're averaging 1,000 miles a week, then he's saying that on average that you're actually and as I mentioned to him, and he just broke down with joy when he heard me say that. And he was saying, "You're right, Mr. Muhammad. That this is a white gentleman. He said that when the gas prices go up to $100 a barrel, it done already pay for the car just by not paying for the gas price, but just by based upon the mileages that he's getting.
That's right.
Now, the problem is that she's locked in on that SUV price. See, and this is where the problem is coming. Now, I'm hearing about GM. There's another thing that we didn't talk about. But I think this is for new vehicles, I think.
Oh, well, they're going to lock you in for a gas price, $199?
Yeah, at $199.
That's a gimmick.
If you buy an SUV.
Yeah, that's a gimmick because, I mean, let's face it. You get
locked. Just think about that. They're paying. I mean, they're going to. Okay, go ahead, brother. It's sad. And tell that sister that she needs to. This is what she needs to do. She can be able to get these solar systems on her house so that she can have more money to pay for the SUV.
Yeah, and what's so frightening is that so many people that have these SUVs, they're financed, they're locked into with the finance company.
Yeah, they are.
Now the price of fuel is going up to where it's really unaffordable to drive the car, but you've got that car in your driveway that you still have a $300 and in some cases maybe even a $400 or $500 a month note. But you can't drive the car because it costs too much to drive. It costs too much to operate now.
Well, see, this is why I come right now. Those people who, let me explain something to you right now. I want people to understand, right now, you cannot afford not to get your solar system on your home. Now, thanks God to encouragement of Brother Jamal and through a sister that helped me develop the research on this. I wanted to thank the Sister Alita for that. And, but I wanted to say this, is that, we have designed some systems that are small systems that you can actually use for blackouts and brownouts, and also to take lights off the load of the house, and so you can do some things. So you can cut and reduce your costs. I'm saying to you, between now and each and every year, you could be seeing a big major jump of 250%. Nobody right now, from what I'm hearing now, is actually building houses with gas furnaces anymore. They are now going with electrical furnaces, but where the problem is that the natural gas is tied to the electrical power plants. So if they are tied to they are actually tied to the electrical power plants, I'm saying to you right now, you are not safe. Your home is not safe. You are going to be spending more time at home based upon your driving patterns going to change, meaning that you're going to be more at home, and your electrical cost is going to go sky high.
Brother Wisdom, we're right up against the break right now. We're going to go ahead and take our break, family. When we return, we're going to talk about the Consumer Reports survey that recently was published. This one came out from the Consumer Reports Auto Plus survey, and it's basically saying what the American consumer is willing to do and not do as the price of gas rises. You're listening to The Future Shock, the high price of oil and energy in the world today, with Brother Wisdom Tusi and Brother Jamal. And we want you to email questions. Please email those questions, because, I mean, we have a nice audience, but you're not participating. I don't know. Maybe they're too scared to participate. Maybe that costs money, too. Email us your questions at innerlightradio@yahoo.com. We'll be right back, family.
Wait, so you did not like this? I would have liked. Hey, you're not on your shit, keep going. You got how to know? It's in good one.
Welcome back, family. This is Brother Jamal, and with Wisdom Tuesday is we're talking about Future Shock, the high price of oil and energy in the world today. Email your questions at innerlightradio@yahoo.com. Coming up next in approximately another 35 minutes, Sister Tissa Muhammad with another edition of A Time to Love. Tonight she's going to talk about the legacy of James Brown. Yeah, you know that ought to be something. That'll be coming up in about 35 minutes at the top of the hour. And for those of you that want to listen to Sister Tissa Muhammad's program, you can always email her at LUV@hotmail.com. So that'll be another interesting program coming up. Right now we're talking about the high price of fuel and energy in the world today with our special guest, Brother Wisdom Tusi. Brother Wisdom, welcome back.
Yes, it's a great honor again, and to all of the African people, wherever we find them throughout the diaspora, and throughout all of Africa. We wanted to thank you for listening in here at Interlight Radio and here at www.talkblackliveradio.com.
Okay, Brother Wisdom, let's go right back to an article, because what we try to do is cite a lot of data, family, because, of course, we have our opinions, and our opinions are based on the data. We like to look at what's taking place right now and project what could happen in the future. Let's look at some of the data right now. This one is coming from the latest Consumer Reports Auto Pulse survey, and it says that 37% of consumers say gasoline prices are so high they are looking to replace their current vehicles with more efficient ones, mainly hybrid models. Now, I know another issue is that some of the hybrids don't get better gas mileage than some of the conventional gasoline burning engines. That's another issue for some. Of those who say they may replace their vehicles, 50% say they are considering gasoline electric hybrids. Another 30% said they are considering either flexible fuel vehicles or diesel vehicles. Hybrids currently make up just 1% of total new car sales. Even if they're not considering a hybrid, many consumers are looking to downsize. More than half of those planning to replace their cars are thinking about a small car, compared with about 20% who are focusing on a family sedan or small SUV. Two of the magazine's top picks for 2006 are hybrids, the Toyota Prius and the Toyota Highlander Hybrid. The survey also found 7 of 10 Americans have accepted $3 a gallon gas. They have accepted this?
That's the part. Let me explain. See, that's the part. Now, listen, when you hear that, that's a psychological flaw. That's telling you to accept it. And then the point is that how can we? You see, let me explain. That's a part of a psychological ploy that they use in the media to convince the consumer to booster the consumer confidence in the direction of which they want these oil barons to have you to accept what they're doing. But you should have righteous indignation, just like you had righteous indignation on the part of removing a governor in California to replace him. Then just like when you look at, here it is all these years through Kenny Lay and also through Abenoff that produced it and lobbied policies that was in favor of strengthening strengthening the positions of these oil barons and their consolidations. And that's not just only the oil industry. We have to look at the pharmaceutical industry. We have to look at the agricultural industry. There's a whole host of things that are taking place as we speak. But what it is doing is that when you hear the term that goes like this, when you hear them in the news media saying that let the free marketplace address the economic and social conditions of the society. But, in essence, it could be true if we had free competition. But where is it at? There is no free competition when you have violations of the anti-monopoly laws, the anti-security laws, and the antitrust laws of this country. You have countries right now, like in Brazil and Argentina, and matter of fact, it is on the plate and on the table of the senators now to investigate and look into how they could be able to move the consumer market into using alternative fuels in relationship to the shock and awe that's going to be hitting your table very shortly, or hitting your pocketbooks, in regards to when those oil prices shoot up to $100 a barrel. Now, they are looking at, there's so many alternatives. For example, they already have countries that are already doing it. They already have vehicles that have been using sugar as a means to create the corn ethanol. They're using ethanol, I'm talking about, not corn, but they're using that. The corn is just one byproduct that can produce ethanol base, or biofuel. Now, the issue here is that you even have, not only just sugar, they even have what you call one of the best producers for that is a great alternative to the gasoline byproducts or petroleum byproducts is the believe it or not, called African grass. And this African grass is supposed to be is something that now the new that introduction of this process could be meaning that farmers must begin to look and explore these new avenues of revenue-producing technologies to help assure the positioning of the black farmers as well as that would address the 21st century.
African grass as a source of energy?
Isn't that nice?
I don't know that much about that one, Brother Wisdom. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yes, what it is basically is a distillery process that you can actually African grass is a good product that can be used to create biofuel.
I mean, like they would, make moonshine.
That's correct. And let me show you something, brother. All them old folks that that been used to going back and down in Tennessee, you know who I'm talking about, making that moonshine, all down through there in Alabama and all of them areas. Pretty soon they're gonna be well known. Pretty soon we might have to get one of them instead of making some of that whiskey. Get them to start making your own gasoline at home. I'm sorry, brother. But I'm not. I'm for real when I think about that. But go ahead, brother.
Okay, I'm putting in a search engine in here now, and I found I'm locating an article about this grass. Mm-hmm. I just found one on Reuters that came out today, actually. And it says fields of swaying giant grass and patchwork patterns of willow plantations could become a common sight as Britain turns to crops for heating and electricity to tackle the efforts of global warming. The main difference is the height compared to conventional crops, said Angela Karp, deputy head of the plant and invertebrate ecology division of Rossman's, Romstead Research Center. Quote, people are used to looking at certain landscapes, such as fields of cereal, and this will change. The impact on the English landscape, which has almost mythical status in the nation's literature and psyche, could be similar to the change after rapeseed acreage expanded in the 1970s and 80s, covering the countryside with fields full of distinctive bright yellow flowers. Okay, let's go down here. I want to know how they're going to turn this into energy now.
Mm-hmm. And that process, and matter of fact, it is the most potent. Matter of fact, the African grass is the best that you can find that it could produce as an alternative, and that's why I'm saying to you that the oil barons need we need alternative fuel sources, and this is why I'm saying that these oil barons have actually endangered the economy of the American public, and at the same time we're looking at if it was a true free marketplace, then we would have these alternatives. You could look at windmills, wind generating plants. We're looking at solar systems. And this is why the list can go on. When we talk about water irrigation treatment systems, for example, for farmers, you could use solar water irrigation treatment systems and solar pumps. For medical applications, when you're in countries like throughout Africa, when we're talking about housing designs that gets into ecological designs, building designs, that is dealing with a complete entire the house basically a house that is totally independent of the gas lines and the electric lines that are out there. That's why I welcomed you now, and as you read and when you find a site, let me know when you get to that part about the African grass. You can put in there African grass for alternative fuel sources or biofuel or something like that. Maybe you might see something there. But the issue here is that we need to begin to have housing associations. We need the churches, the mosque, and all these different organizations and stuff, including the black businessmen, to start stepping up to the plate and speaking and letting this be a part of the language. We have not heard from the Black Congressional Caucus on this issue or on regards to the economic impacts of the black community and tying it into the energy crisis. We have not heard from the pastors out in the street, and not only just that, we're not even hearing. Well, right now, I'm thankful that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has been, which is a divine warner and teacher and guide to us all. And this is the reason why I'm doing my part, because of what he has outlined in regards to the 7 ministries and the national agenda. And at the same time, as you mentioned, we're getting ready to come into the hurricane seasons now. We're getting ready to come into some very. We're hearing about tornadoes already. Just within the last month, they had over 500-600 tornadoes, unusual occurrences of that. We're hearing about now. We're getting ready to see weather changes, and these hurricanes are going to be coming. And they predicted up to 4 to 6 major hurricanes is going to hit the area. Now, and we're not talking about earthquakes, and we just had a couple of rumbles in the St. Louis area, in Dred Scott City area, where we had a 3.2, anywhere from a 2.7 to 3.2 throughout Ohio and throughout St. Louis area in regards to earthquake tremors. Now, the point is that what are we doing to prepare ourselves? And that's the issue. I know a lot of us being heartbroken for so many reasons, but the thing is that don't allow yourself to become caught up and become victim. And this is what we're here for. We're not just only here to provide you with the critical analysis of the situation that we see that's before us, but here we're providing solutions.
Let's continue on with this survey that was generated by the Consumer Reports Auto Pulse. And it continues by saying that although the survey found 7 of 10 Americans willing to accept $3 a gallon of gas, I guess they didn't talk to me or you, Brother Wisdom.
No, they didn't talk to nobody, but what they did, they talked to the bank account when they slid that money in their pocket, because I'm gonna tell you right now, they got to say something to keep the consumer confidence going, because of the fact that if you feel that comfortable at $3 a gallon, then just wait until $4 come.
Well, that's the next thing here. They said that although 7 out of 10 Americans have accepted $3 a gallon, only half are prepared to pay $4 a gallon. Quote unquote, high gas prices are not an inconvenience anymore. Says,
I'm sorry. Where were these people at? These people that are now giving these kind of reports like this. I mean, shouldn't they have been warning the American public? And I'm talking about these folks that say that they're so astute. Shouldn't they have been warning the American public in regards to the downside and the danger of oil consolidation? We shouldn't have been warning the American public that there was not any new electric power plants being built across this country to address the growing population and urban sprawl? I mean, where is that? I mean, think about it. And then on top of it, shouldn't you, as an American public, have a right to have some righteous indignation for all them billions of dollars of taxpayers' money? You talk about taxpayers' money going to the poor, and you complained. Where are you at now? Here it is. The very thing that you were attacking is also was the safety net that could have saved you.
Well, this report continues. High gas prices are not just an inconvenience anymore, says Robert Gentile, director of Consumer Reports Auto Price Services. Quote, they are forcing people to reconsider what and how they drive, even the way they live their lives, end of quote. The survey found about 30% of consumers will find it harder to pay for essentials like food and health care. 39% said they would have to change their vacation plans. Other findings from the Consumer Report include 42% say they strongly agree they will drive less to save gas. 38% say they will reduce spending on restaurant meals and other entertainment. 38% said they will drive more slowly and more smoothly in order to save gas. 16% say they will walk or ride their bicycle more. 13% will carpool more. 10% will use public transportation more. The survey was taken of 2,400 men and women in America.
Do you know that you can shoot a survey any way you want to? Create a survey and ask the American public, do they want back their subsidized money that they gave, those billions of dollars, to the utilities and to the oil barons? Don't you have a right to rescind that? And what about those laws that the lobbyists have done? Are they illegal? I'm talking about the laws that Kenny laid forth through the Republicans and the neocons, and now the Republicans are now stepping back off of some of these issues. They're not getting too deeply involved because they know that their seats is at stake.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it be nice? I mean, let me ask you something. Don't you think that maybe could it be that the American public could actually produce a class action suit against these oil barons and rescind and ask, just like you can rescind a sitting governor, can you rescind those laws that was passed with the signature and the mark of Kenny Lay and Herb Abenoff on it?
You know,
I mean, I'm saying is that for all those billions of dollars, and even and this is not something that I thought of. Matter of fact, that was something that the senators, one of the senators, thought of. Matter of fact, all of them at this when they were doing the investigation of the oil consolidation. And then on top of it, they're saying, well, look, on the new subsidies that we're giving you on those billions of tax incentives, we're going to take that back. And let me ask you something. You think this is something? You're looking at the United States government in a major deficit of $20 trillion worth of deficit. How long will you allow the American public and the businesses and the future of your unborn children to be enslaved to a debt that you had nothing to do with? And when you think about it, at $20 trillion, you think about, here it is, how would you feel? What would be the American public if they hear that these oil barons this year end up saying that they got a historic $1 trillion worth of windfall profits in 1 year? Where did that $1 trillion come from? Did it come from off the table of your children's mouths? Or where did it come from? From the medicines of your grandparents? Or where did it come from? From the jobs that were replaced by the outsourcing of globalization from other countries like China and every other country that totally wiped out their manufacturing base? Where is it coming from? And that means that America is up for sale. And when they talk about it in the Revelations, they describe Babylon as the great whore.
Brother Wisdom, it's unfortunate we're about out of time for this particular edition of Future Shock. Any last things you'd like to let our audience know? What should we do this week as we prepare for higher gas prices next week?
I want everyone to stay tuned. I want you to make sure that we will be broadcasting. I apologize to you, beloved, because I was busy shipping this stuff out for the these solar systems, and I want everyone to know that you can get your solar system today. We got pricing running from anywhere from, we could fluctuate between $1,500 to $2,400 for the small systems. Then we got price range for $3,500 on up. But we got some form of system for you. You need to contact us and Innerlight Radio and at www.talkblacklive. That means you can email me at wisdom2c@yahoo.com. Again, Wisdom to C. We have a nationwide toll-free number to you. That is 1-866-465-2006. Again, it's 1-866-465-2006, or you can call me on our nationwide hotline, and that is the 618-447-5004. Again, it's 447-5004. We're going to outline, and hopefully we're going to be able to get all this information out with the pictures of what you're going to get and all this kind of thing. You need to get your system, a solar system today, because each day is working against you. You're going to be more at home, and when that reality hits you, but I'm saying to you that we're looking at across the nation anywhere from 70 to 25% increase and across this country and every state across this union. And you cannot afford to not protect your family. There's things that you could do. Remove those light bulbs out of your house. Go with the 13-watt light bulbs. You'll see a significant increase in your electric costs. Get these solar systems in there. And also take advantage of the grants and rebates across the state. Go to this site, www.DSIREUSA.org, and look in there, and you'll see a map of your state, and you click there and look for home incentives and federal incentives and state incentives and rebates and those type of wording, and then contact me again at 618-447-5004. But please, at the time right now, I'm getting to the point now that business is really picking up. And as things are coming around, and I've got all types of people that I'm dealing with, and I'm talking about whites, Hispanics, and a very, very few blacks, but I'm trying to educate as many to make this move. Now, I'm saying to you now that at this point of the juncture, you need to contact me as soon as possible. But do not waste my time. I'm not here to provide, when we get into things about consulting and getting information, I did my best when I first initially started out. I did a lot of giving out a lot of information. But at this point of the time now, I've got to be able to help. I'll help people better by spending my time shipping out the systems to the people who are very serious. That's the way I can help people at this point.
Well, Brother Wisdom. Brother Wisdom, I want to thank you again for being our guest today. You're the host of this program, Future Shock, here on InnerLightRadio.com. We'll see you next week, family. The normal broadcast time for this program is 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is 12 o'clock if you're in the Central Time, and that is 1 o'clock if you are Eastern Standard Time, every Thursday here on InnerLightRadio.com.
Brother Jamal, please forgive me. We will be on time every time at 10 p.m., as I said.
No, 10 a.m., sir, 10 a.m.
I'm sorry, 10 a.m. Across the country. What you can do now is network and contact as many people. Well, let me explain, Brother Jamal, that one person is 100 people.
And in certain markets, one person is even 10,000. Brother Wisdom, we got to cut out of here. We got another program coming up right behind this one with Sister Tissa Muhammad, A Time to Love, and just going to talk about the legacy of James Brown with our guest, filmmaker and entrepreneur Anthony Page. So we'll be right back in about 10 minutes. A Time to Love is our next program. We'll be right back, family. Head to Pool, Hotep, and we'll see you next week.